Hello there guys, how are you all doing? Welcome as always back to Rule of Two Review. Today I want to discuss some of my most wanted Nintendo Switch games. Now this should be a lot of fun because as much as there is a great library of games to play on the Switch right now, and some really awesome looking games that we know we're going to be able to play by the end of the year, all of these games, mostly by Nintendo of course, there's still a lot of things that we're not seeing happen on the Switch. Whether they're third-party games, whether they're genres that we're maybe not seeing a lot of or any hints of anytime soon. And because the Switch is so fun, and because I love it so much and want so many different kinds of games and genres of games to play, both in portable or in TV mode for my Switch, I realize that there's a lot of pretty cool experiences that I think we're missing on the Switch that I'm hoping to see sometime soon. Now, this isn't another video that's trying to be a commentary on the third-party situation and the fact that some companies aren't as on board with Nintendo and the Switch as we maybe want. We've all talked about it to death. I've talked about that to death and made probably 4 videos over the last 2 months just on that one topic. And that's not really what I'm doing, and I'm also not talking about stuff that has to be something that we can believe would happen. 1 or 2 of these are pretty far-fetched ideas, and I'm shooting for the stars and even talking about them, so they're kind of more of just dream projects, hence the name of the video, the dream games that I would like to see come to the Switch. It's really just about what I would like to see, and maybe what you guys would also like to see as well. It's not so much about, let's make this happen, it's going to happen, it's even in the realm of possibility that it could happen. It is literally, as the title says, they're just dream projects. Although it should be noted that more than half of these are actual possibilities in games that I think we still could see. So that's kind of why I thought this would be a lot of fun. And with that said, we'll get going. This is just, like I said, the 5 dream games and or projects and or genres that I would like to see show up on the Nintendo Switch. So the first title that I wanted to talk about today is one of those reaching for the stars sort of titles, because we really can probably never expect to see this come to the Switch, but I think it would be a perfect match and it would make me so crazy happy, and that would be Destiny 2. So if you've known me for any length of time, you know that I am proudly a big fan of the first Destiny. I think it was a great game, and I'm glad that it was successful enough for Bungie to want to move ahead with the sequel. Are there issues about whether or not this is really just what the first game was supposed to be, or is this more just an expansion that they're charging $60 for, and all these different things? Yeah, maybe, probably some of that's true, but as a fan of the gameplay and the world and what I know I can expect from Destiny 2, I just don't care, and I think that most Destiny fans don't care either, so I'm pumped for the game. I'm jazzed to pick it up on my PlayStation 4. 2 or 3 of my good buddies are also jazzed to pick it up. They have like the super duper special editions reserved. We're gonna have a great old time playing that game over the next couple of years. I can't wait. But when it comes to the Switch, and you think about what Destiny is and represents, I think it would be a spectacular experience on the Switch. The fact that it is so reliant on social play and so heavily revolves around this MMO shared world sort of experience, even though it's a different genre of shared world game we've seen before the first game came out, it's still a really cool idea, especially when you combine that with the portable nature of the Switch. Obviously, I think it would be great and fantastic to play the game just in normal docked mode and have it running on a Nintendo console and having a Nintendo controller in my hand to play it. But what really gets me excited is the fact that me and my buddies, instead of having to be at home on PSN or using whatever to just chat with each other via our phones or whatever app we're using, we could just go to each other's houses, or they could come over here, or we could all meet up somewhere with our Switches and then get in a fire team and go through a strike or go through a raid together in the same house, in the same room. And in a weird way, it sort of evokes the days of like Halo LAN parties where we would all get together. You younger gamers out there have no idea what this is like and how freaking fantastic it was, even though it was a pain in the butt. We would literally bring whole Xboxes over to one person's house with a bunch of TVs. I mean, we would literally get together with TVs and Xboxes and hook them up for a night and be playing Halo LAN parties. And it's like kind of like the fancier, more elegant modern day version of the same thing. Instead of lugging Xboxes and TVs, you're just taking your Switch. And your Switch is all of a sudden linked together wirelessly instead of needing to use a hub with Ethernet ports. And you're just playing Destiny together. And it would be so fantastic. Anyone who knows Destiny and enjoys it, and also enjoys the Switch, could probably see the benefit there. Obviously, it's not going to happen. Bungie's not going to make it happen. It's a very ambitious title. It relies so heavily on an online network, and we know Nintendo's online is really wacky and weird. And, you know, could it run it visually? Probably not. Currently, they'd have to downgrade it a little bit. I think it would still look pretty good, but yes, they'd have to downgrade it. I mean, there's 100 reasons why the game will never actually show up on the Switch, but that doesn't mean I wouldn't absolutely love it and that it wouldn't be great. So that's the first game I wanted to talk about. Definitely a dream for me. The next game I would love to see show up on the Switch is one of the ones that could happen, and I actually think eventually will happen. Don't know when, but I think it eventually will happen, and that is Call of Duty. Because, man, I love me some Call of Duty. You guys, I'm not going to lie. I'm just a sucker for the series. I'm a sucker for the gameplay. I think World War II is going to be fantastic. I wanted to believe that Activision would be smart and bring that game to the Switch. However, Activision is not smart, and they are missing a gigantic, gargantuan opportunity to get Call of Duty into more players' hands and make a ton more money, and if they made a solid port, make a lot of gamers happy, and Nintendo fans happy, and then they cast a wider net to a third/fourth avenue of gamers by doing that. And they're not doing that with the Switch, maybe because the system's new and they didn't have time to make a Switch-specific version. It is what it is, but when I think about the future, I think Call of Duty is an excellent franchise to have on the Switch. Call of Duty saw really strong success on the Wii at a time where they had to have a whole separate team make an extremely unique version just for the Wii and the Wii audience because the architecture was so vastly different. But those games were actually pretty darn good. I played them and they sold pretty well, all things considered. And they brought 2 Call of Duty games to the Wii U. Some people forget that, but the Wii U launched with Black Ops 2, which was a fantastic port of an excellent Call of Duty game. And then they also released Ghosts the following year, which was a pretty good port of a pretty good Call of Duty game. Not great, it was just pretty good. It was okay. And I know those didn't do too hot, and that, of course, was the last time we saw Call of Duty on a Nintendo console. The Switch, very similar to Destiny, changes the game when it comes to Call of Duty. And more than even just Call of Duty itself being a great fit for the Switch, I think a first-person shooter is a great fit for the Switch. I really want to know what the first tried and true first-person shooter experience is going to be on the Switch. I hope it's not Metroid Prime 4 because I feel like that game is really far away and I would like to see 1 or 2 shooters show up on the Switch before Metroid Prime 4. Also, as we know, Metroid Prime isn't really a first-person shooter, it's more of a first-person adventure. I actually believe in that moniker for Metroid Prime, first-person adventure. I think that that's appropriate, it applies. So, you know, Call of Duty, next year, I think there's a good chance that the Switch is still going to be so successful, Activision realizes they would be crazy not to put the time, effort, and resources into making a Switch-specific port for whatever Call of Duty game is coming out next year. And mark my words, again, if it's a solid, quality port that has all the features and all the DLC, it will sell like gangbusters on the Switch. The Nintendo Switch audience, I know, will eat up a brand new Call of Duty game. Even gamers that probably aren't really that into Call of Duty, I think would get excited just to be able to play a game like that on the Switch. It could be the magic, the secret ingredient to the Switch and Switch ports of third-party games. So I love Call of Duty. I think it would do really well on the Switch, and I really want to play that first-person shooter experience on my Nintendo Switch. So the next game I want to talk about is tricky for a lot of ways, and you're going to see why. And that is Resident Evil. So that's tricky in the sense that it's also not just Resident Evil that I want, it's also just the horror genre. I really want to see the horror genre show up on the Switch and show up in force, show up with quite a few options, and with quality games, and Resident Evil being one of my probably top 5 game series of all time, I do want to see Resident Evil show up and be properly represented on the Switch as well. Now, Resident Evil specifically, we'll step away from the horror thing for a minute. Resident Evil specifically is unique because, well, we know Resident Evil is sort of coming to the Switch because a couple of weeks ago, Capcom announced that they are bringing over Resident Evil Revelations Part 1 and Part 2 to the Nintendo Switch, alongside of the PS4 and Xbox One. And that's cool. Like I talked about, I wasn't really mad about that. I think that Capcom needs to be making smarter decisions, but at the end of the day, the first Revelations game is a fantastic Resident Evil game, so I was like, you know, there's some crumminess here, but it's still great to get a really great game, and it's going to be fun on the Switch. So we are getting those Resident Evil games, so yes, Resident Evil will be represented on the Switch very soon. But when I talk about having Resident Evil on the Switch, I kind of mean something more new and current. And that could mean either a port of Resident Evil 7, which, although that game is already released, is a very new, very fresh game. It is less than a year old. Literally, it's 7 months old, 8 months old. Like, that's a new game. It is a great game, and I would love to see that game on the Switch. It would sell very, very well, I believe, and I would replay it again on the Switch, seriously, just to try it in portable mode. But it could also mean whatever next Resident Evil game they're planning. Resident Evil 8 obviously would be fantastic to see on the Switch. Or, I've talked about this, and I think we actually will see this, the upcoming remake of Resident Evil 2, which has kind of gone dark, and I'm a little bit nervous about, but I do think that game will eventually make it out, because the remakes of 1 and 0 have done very, very well, and the remake of 1 on the GameCube is one of the best games I've ever played in my entire life. So, really excited for the 2 remake, and I think that there is a pretty good chance that that game does show up on the Switch. As far as horror, so I know that there's this Vaccine game downloadable on the eShop that I very much want to purchase, and I just have been lazy and haven't picked it up, which is like a throwback to old PS1 graphic style RE1 gameplay. It looks awesome. I absolutely want to play that game. But that's kind of a little downloadable, bite-sized, you know, it's like a half-hour experience. It's like a half-hour timer, and then the game resets, and it's procedurally generated. It's cool, but it's niche. And then there's something about this game called Hollow that's in development right now that has a very Dead Spacey vibe. I actually learned about it first from OJ over on Player Essence. He made a video talking about the fact that the developer would like to make a Switch version of the game. I hadn't even heard of the game, and all the concept stuff I saw for it looks great. So that's a game I'm really excited for, and the fact that it might come to the Switch is great. So if that turns out to be a good game, and a game that shows up on the Switch, well then hooray. Then we get, you know, our first really big possible horror game on the Switch. But I would like to see more. I want to see solid Resident Evil. I want to see this Hollow game. I want to see whatever next, I don't know, like multi-platform zombie-esque kind of shooter game or whatever different things they could do. The true horror that's out there, I think could work really, really well on the Switch. Fatal Frame 5 came out 2 years ago for the Wii U and was freaking awesome on the Wii U. What if the next Fatal Frame made it to the Switch and made it for a worldwide release? Nintendo, don't make it this weird, awkward thing that's hard to get into different territories and we don't get physical over here in North America. Like, none of that stuff. Just make it a legit, like, release that you have confidence in and you believe will sell and will make people happy. Release that game, if it comes out, on the Switch, worldwide. Like, these are the kinds of things we want to see. I am a huge horror fan. My girlfriend and I love to play through horror games together, and it would be really sweet to see some solid horror game support on the Nintendo Switch. The next game gets me really excited to talk about. I really am curious to see how this is going to play out over the next couple of years. I sadly have to say I think this is the other Shooting for the Stars game. I don't think this has a very good shot at showing up on the Switch. I may be wrong, but I guess we'll see. That game is Beyond Good and Evil 2. So Beyond Good and Evil, I mean, you guys know. You followed me through E3. You know the whole thing. Beyond Good and Evil, the first game, one of my top 10 all-time favorite games. And when Beyond Good and Evil 2 finally was announced and revealed this year, I was in tears. I mean, I was freaking out. I mean, you guys saw me on Twitter, like, just going nuts, man. I made, like, 3 videos about the game. I'm very, very excited. I'm a little bit cautious because they're doing so many different things that I kind of wish they weren't doing, but I'm just going to believe in Michel Ancel's vision, and I'm going to believe in Ubisoft, and I don't want to be negative towards the game until I play it and maybe see that it's bad. I want to believe everything they're doing is going to be good, and the gameplay demo that they did get me excited. It looks like a very, very great game that is extremely ambitious, and it is that ambition that makes me nervous that it has no chance at showing up on the Nintendo Switch, but it would be a fantastic game for the Switch. And you know, Beyond Good and Evil 2 has such a weird history when it comes to Nintendo and the Switch. I mean, rumors about the game being exclusive to the Nintendo NX go back like 1.5, 2 years. So there's something weird behind the scenes when it comes to Ubisoft, Beyond Good and Evil, and Nintendo, and the Switch, and what was also at that time known as the NX. I mean, something must have been happening or being talked about behind closed doors. I feel like that rumor was so persistent for so long, even before the Switch was revealed as the Switch, that I feel like there's some sort of truth to it, and something must have been happening. So does the truth of that possibly translate over to the Beyond Good and Evil 2 that we've seen, and the Nintendo Switch as it exists now? I don't know. Maybe. I mean, it certainly could. And I know that there was like a Spanish, or maybe it was like a Brazilian website had posted something that like showed proof that Beyond Good and Evil 2 is, as of right now, planned for the Switch, something on the back end and Ubisoft, something or other. So that's great. I mean, that's great. Maybe that proves that it's going to happen. It's kind of one of those too good to be true things for me, I think. It's hard for me to want to put my faith in believing this game could come to the Switch. But if this game turns out to be the excellent, amazing sequel, prequel that we've wanted for the last 9 years, you know, frickin' Beyond Good and Evil 2 finally coming. If it turns out to be good, and it turned out to come to the Switch, that would be incredible. It's obviously not going to be exclusive, so whatever that conversation was, just forget about that. Remove that from your head, guys. This game will be PlayStation, Xbox, PC guaranteed. The Nintendo platform / Switch of choice. Who knows? But wow, it would be really interesting to see this game finally make it to the Switch. We have to remember the first game did release on the GameCube. That's the version I own. That's the version I played back in 2003 when it blew my mind. So the series has a history on Nintendo. There were rumors about the sequel coming to Nintendo. It doesn't look like it makes sense now that we've seen the game, but you never know, so let's cross our fingers. It is easily one of my most dreamt about Nintendo Switch games. And the final game that I want to talk about today is more of a genre. It's more of a series than it is a specific title. This belongs on the Nintendo Switch. It's got to happen sometime soon, and that is Star Wars games. Obviously, I was gonna talk about Star Wars games coming to the Nintendo Switch because I love me some Star Wars. You guys know it's my favorite thing in the whole wide world is Star Wars. And it is such a wonderful Star Wars infested time we live in. I shouldn't use the word infested, but you know, Star Wars is everywhere. For good reason. We have new movies and a new trilogy happening, something we thought we might never ever see again 12 years ago when Revenge of the Sith came out. It was like, well, no more Star Wars movies. It's been a fun ride. I guess it's all up to TV stuff from now. And instead, so many things have changed the course and the fate of the franchise, and now we're getting new stuff. And through that comes this unfortunate 10-year licensing deal with EA that we're now probably 3 or so years into. I want to say that was 2013, actually. Maybe we're 4 years into it. And we've only seen one game, and it was an okay Star Wars Battlefront. Just an okay game. Not bad, not great, just all right. Now we have Battlefront 2 on the horizon, which looks to be so good. You guys freaking out over Battlefront 2. For Gamescom this weekend, they even just released some more space battle and ship combat trailer stuff. That's mostly like CG concept, but it's so great. It showed original trilogy stuff. It showed the planet Ryloth space battle. It showed Jedi Starfighter battles on Kamino. Oh my god, it looks so freaking good. So anyway, point is, Star Wars needs to start hitting full force with brand new games. Battlefront 2 is going to be amazing, but that will only be the second Star Wars game in the new EA Star Wars regime that we have 6 or so years left of. So what else are you guys doing, EA? Like, I'm excited about Battlefront 2, but what are you doing after that? Or what about this Darth Maul game that was canceled a long time ago? What about 1313 being resurrected? What about Amy Hennig's game that we've seen like 4 seconds of footage of some random smuggler looking dude walking out of a door onto like a desert planet? Like, what is that game? I mean, I think we'll see that soon. I think that's Visceral's game. I want to see those sooner than later, and I would love to see that you understand that Star Wars absolutely, of any franchise out there right now, has a market on the Nintendo Switch. Because Star Wars is the everyman's franchise. That is the thing that reaches the widest audience, period. Like, it's the hugest thing in the world, again, especially right now. And if you were releasing a lot of new Star Wars games based on the movies, based on books, or based on the Clone Wars or whatever, that would so easily transfer over to the Nintendo Switch audience. Of course, the gameplay would be fantastic to have portable. When I think about Battlefront 2 on the Nintendo Switch, oh my goodness, my heart skips a beat, you guys. That would be freaking so, it would be so good to be able to do that. But that's not going to happen. I want to believe that future Star Wars games, whatever we see next year and the year after, when I think EA will finally start to show us other Star Wars projects that are not Battlefront, we've got to see some of those things come to the Nintendo Switch. I mean, I know that they're all like, ooh, we're going to test the waters with FIFA. Like, whatever. Okay, fine. FIFA, I guess. But I feel like there are better opportunities to test the Nintendo Switch waters from EA, and to me, that is Star Wars. It's not just the Star Wars fanboy in me saying this. This is like, I think objectively, most people could agree, because of the wide-reaching appeal of Star Wars and Star Wars video games, that would make a lot more sense on the Nintendo Switch. And EA, if you released Battlefront 2, or the Visceral game, or whatever high-profile, awesome-looking Star Wars game on the Nintendo Switch, I guarantee you that will sell way more than FIFA is going to sell. And then you would be like, oh, wow, it turns out a system that's selling millions and millions of units all the time has gamers that will buy our games if we make good games. Like, it's such obvious logic to me, and the fact that some of these companies don't get it is so frustrating. And, like, I like EA probably more than half the time, and so I want to see them see support on the Switch. I'm going to buy FIFA on the Switch. Like, I totally am going to support that because they need to test the waters, and at least FIFA is supposed to be a good game. But Star Wars is that perfect match. I think it's that perfect combination with the Nintendo audience, the portable nature of the Switch, and the Star Wars franchise, and what kind of people that reaches, and the audience, the size of the audience that it reaches. So, for all these reasons, that's why I think Star Wars, absolutely. Star Wars video games definitely belongs on the Nintendo Switch. So that's it, guys. 5 games or franchises or genres that I would like to see on the Switch. My personal list of 5 dream games or projects that really should probably be available on Nintendo's newest console. And if and when any of these projects or genres finally start to show up on the Nintendo Switch, which I think eventually a couple of these will start to do over the next probably year to 2 years, these companies are going to see success, and they're going to realize they've been missing the boat for a long time on how much money they could be making on Nintendo's console from us, the Nintendo and the Nintendo Switch gamer. And I think that if they put their time and effort into it, man, it's all about the quality. That's the thing I think some of these companies didn't get with the Wii U. They thought it was just about the name. They thought it was just about the prestige of the Assassin's Creed title or whatever. But it's like, oh yeah, but you made a bad game. You made a bad port of a not great game, and people aren't going to buy that. Not because Nintendo fans don't want to buy that, but because smart people who are smart with their money won't make bad decisions to buy bad games. And they didn't really understand that. So this generation, and with the Switch, this Nintendo console, if quality ports of quality franchises start to show up, man, I guarantee you, video game industry and developers of the world, you'll make your money, you'll sell your games, you'll make us happy, and we'll have great stuff to play. So, that's my little PSA message, I think, for the video. And this was a lot of fun, man. I love doing lists. I love talking about dream projects and games. And I love talking about games I want on my Nintendo Switch. What do you guys think about the titles and the genres and whatnot that I talked about today? Do you agree with any of my choices? Does my list align with yours? Is there other dream projects and games you would like to see that I didn't talk about? Share your thoughts and the games that you care about below. And that's it. So thanks as always for tuning in, guys. This, of course, is Rob of Rule of Two Review. And I'll catch you next time on another video.